my limit, so that's it.
You sure you want to be here?
Yes, I do.
Are you absolutely sure?
I'm positive.
Whatever you have to do, just find an excuse to win. Keep going.
It pays to be aware.
And welcome to Cold War Radio Live, ladies and gentlemen. Your number one source for government and political talk anywhere. Coming to you from the Steel City Resistance Studio in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm wondering why I can't hear myself right. All right, that's a little bit better. No, it really isn't. All right, let's figure this out. There we go. All right, now we're moving. Coming to you from the Steel City Resistance Studio in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr., deep down in the broadcast bunker. And with me from the Shenandoah Valley Studio in Virginia, without giving a weather report yet, please come in, Jack.
Yeah, I'm not complaining about the weather here. My brother, good to be here, Hutch, and welcome to all the people that's tuned in on Spreaker, and especially all the folks at the Spreaker chat room. Thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much. Please follow me on Spreaker, like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio 22. Ward Miller, an initial member of the team, maintains that page quite nicely, plus all of the audio clips that you hear on the program. You can see most of the audio clips, I should say. You can see the video on that Facebook page. It corresponds with the episode number. That's all. That's written on the post. This is Cold War Radio 626. So 626 will show you the videos of the clips we are going to play tonight. Let's see. You can catch the show on Roku via Blueberry. You can catch it on YouTube. The 405media.com plays it throughout the day. Cold War Radio is available on iHeartRadio on the free Cold War Radio app that comes right out of this studio and Spreaker and Google. You can listen to the show on Spotify, on iTunes. All of that is podcast. Spreaker is the only place where you can listen to the actual show live. So this is a place to be. The Spreaker chat room's over there. If you want to send email, hutch@steelcityresistance.com. The Cold War Radio Patron hotline, 412-567-1460. If you'd like to be on the show, like I said, the chat room is up on Spreaker. Go to steelcityresistance.com, where you can catch the research room, or more importantly, become a Cold War Radio patron, or just donate to the show one time. Anything you want to do, you can do it there. I want to thank Bubba for becoming a patron. Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. So there you go. This is Cold War Radio on We Are America Radio, WAAR. All right, there it is. We got a crisis within the Catholic Church. It looks like they're throwing the bathwater out. It looks like Cardinal Wuerl is on his way out. I personally have met him. He was once the bishop of the Diocese of Pittsburgh and got a massive promotion up to Washington, D.C. To become something cardinal. He's going to the Vatican to resign. He might have already resigned by now. I don't know if you're following that, Jack. The only reason I'm really following it, I'm not Catholic. Some of my family is. I was brought up in like Catholic light in the Episcopal Church, and I know the guy. So that was, plus it was here that the Attorney General had the cojones to do the thing.
Yeah, I'm like you. I have family members that are in the Catholic Church, and I'm not too much familiar with your Pittsburgh guy, but I do remember like a week and a half ago that there was like turmoil within the Vatican where someone's accusing the Pope of knowing about this and basically, you know, like they have done in the past, trying to sweep it under the rug. Hopefully this is the wake-up call and they can get straightened out, you know?
Yeah, there's no way that the Pope didn't know about it. I mean, this has been common knowledge for a long time, even when I was younger. You know, this was something that, anyway, that's something that to me, it's a loss for Christianity and it's a loss for the free world. Because all this is ammunition for cultural Marxists, and they're going to use it, believe me.
Yes.
So it's a serious. Now, on this hurricane, ladies and gentlemen, it's moving around a little bit. Some things are changing, but keep in mind that a FEMA official compares this hurricane, Hurricane Florence, to a Mike Tyson punch to the Carolina coast. So don't discount that. I know that all of the governmental and oceanographer, however you say that, agencies have been wrong about 90% of the time in the last few years. But, man, this one looks bad. I don't know if it is or not. I don't know anything about it, but it looks like it's bad. What's going on around your area, Jack? Have you noticed any preparedness? Actually, and how far, without getting too deep, how far from the coast are you, and what are you seeing?
I'm probably more closer to the northwest, closer to West Virginia than I am the actual coastline, Tidewater, Hampton Roads area. But I've been paying attention, and I've got some family members and friends that live down in Hampton Roads, Norfolk, Virginia Beach. And the way the path was yesterday was changed up today, and the way they have it right now, it seems to be a lot worse for the coastline because they have that storm racing up to the coastline, and it's basically stalling out there for 2 or 3 days before it moves inland, which means they're talking Thursday, Friday, Saturday of the force, the surge, the rainfall, all concentrated in that area, which doesn't bode well for those folks. But luckily, I've seen most of the reports I've seen, and most of the people have heeded the warnings and are basically getting out of there. You're always going to have a few folks that want to ride it out, but that's their own personal choice. But this one, like you said, it doesn't look like it's one to be messed with, because if you keep pushing that rain up in that area, like Norfolk and Tidewater, they're supposed to get tropical storm force winds and rain for those 3-4 days, and that's just basically plus the storm surge going in and pushing up against the Chesapeake Bay, Rappahannock River, James River. All that is just pushing the water, and it's got no place to go for that period of time until that storm moves on out of the way, and it can start draining. So it does. Hopefully, I mean, like you said, it was different yesterday. It changed today, but it's getting closer to land. So the closer it gets to land, the more, the more accurate they can be as far as where it's going to hit. And
just because it goes from a Category 4 to a Category 3, a Category 3 is not 0, it's 3. You know what I mean? So there's a reason.
120 plus mile an hour wind.
Right. Yeah, don't get too happy now, so pay attention to that. When's this thing supposed to make landfall?
I think the effects are supposed to begin tomorrow morning, but they're talking about the Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, just hovering right there on the coast.
So a couple days, but we already have reports of the damages and blame from the Democrats in Congress.
Well, he bragged today, Chris, about how ready he was, and he kept telling us how big the storm was, because he likes using monosyllable words like big and huge and great, and he used them all to describe the oncoming hurricane instead of reassuring the American public about
the oncoming hurricane. Anyway, continue, Gutierrez.
What was there to make sure that they could be kept safe, because everything is huge and big. And of course, you want to know what I fear is the calamity, because of the lack of coordination of the government with the National Guard and with local government, the lack of responsiveness and preparedness.
It was horrible.
Of this government, because the president, he wants to find out who is the one that wrote that op-ed piece about the chaos in the White House, because he wants the Justice Department. He is so consumed by the calamity that exists and the chaos that exists that he's not really prepared and focused, because he spends every weekend golfing instead of preparing. 15 of the top managers at FEMA are acting. They're not even in their permanent positions. They haven't even taken time to give them their jobs.
And why is that, Gutierrez? Why is that? How about the Senate confirmation hearings?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is just a ploy to set up for the elections coming up.
Sure.
They're already putting in people's heads that Trump's failed. And so far, the president has met with all the governors, and they're coordinating, getting everything in place. I mean, what else can you do?
All right. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I play these things for educational purposes. You can never believe anything else the media ever tells you again. I mean, or Congress. I mean, this is just so bad.
And he learned a new word, calamity.
Twice he used it. Yeah. That was excellent. I was very impressed. Let's switch gears a little bit to Benghazi and the treatment that they got, the veterans from Benghazi got from the president the other day, the contractors rather, who all had their roots in the U.S. military. I'll tell you, man, there's some new things that keep coming out. There's a couple here that you're going to hear right now. Let's listen.
I was there when the consulate got attacked and the wall got blown open. At the time, there was only 2 security guys there when that happened that night.
Right, but Great Britain had left. The United Nations had left. Others had left, right?
Just listen to those guys' aggravation about, we've been requesting more security, and they just don't know why it keeps getting denied.
And you knew it was a hotbed for terrorist training. Everybody knew.
We were told to wait 5 minutes in, told to stand down. The words stand down were used. There's no confusion. They were used 15 minutes in, and then 10 more minutes there, 25 minutes, and we're told to wait again, and we finally buck orders. It's hard to maintain your composure, but you do. The full truths weren't being told. That's why we did, and why we are telling the truth right now.
just the opposite of what Obama said. I guess Obama missed those interviews because on Friday, he's trying to rewrite history, claiming that his administration's shameful actions surrounding the Benghazi attacks were nothing more than a Republican-led conspiracy theory. Watch him lie.
The politics of division and resentment and paranoia has unfortunately found a home in the Republican Party. This Congress has championed the unwinding of campaign finance laws to give billionaires outside influence over our politics.
But it's okay for unions.
Wild conspiracy theories like those surrounding Benghazi or my birth certificate. Rejected science, rejected facts on things like climate change.
So let's help Obama remember an actual crazy conspiracy and what it looks like. 2012, Susan Rice, U.S. ambassador to the UN. 5 days after the Benghazi attacks, the Obama administration booked her on 5 different Sunday morning shows to lie to you, the American people, saying over and over that the attacks were just an out-of-control protest, a spontaneous protest over a YouTube video. They just happened to have RPGs in their back pocket. Now, of course, Obama knew that this was just the opposite. This blatant cover-up, just one small part of the Benghazi scandal. And more importantly, why was there a lightly armed diplomatic post in a failed state overrun with terrorists where the UN had left, Great Britain left? Why were U.S. reinforcements not immediately sent from across the Mediterranean? Why was this assault allowed to continue for 13 long, excruciating hours? Then Secretary of State Clinton saying at a congressional hearing at the time, if you continue, she's actually lying also. It's unbelievable. Joining us now, the author of the upcoming book, The Deep State, Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz, author of Why We Fight, Fox News national security strategist Dr. Sebastian Gorka. I know who I believe. I believe the guys that were there, Congressman.
Yeah, I was the first member of Congress to go there less than 3 weeks after the attack. The book that I'm writing is a new information about what happened in Benghazi, and I would love to talk to President Obama, saying that's a conspiracy theory. Shame on him. And God bless Tig and Tonto and Charles
maybe not
Wood.
Tonto's become a friend of mine.
Tyrone Woods. God.
Hold on, Jason. What'd you do? Wasn't he a congressman in the middle of all this?
Yeah. And
Bless
as soon
him.
as
No, listen, I'm kidding. I love these guys. Who do you believe, Dr. Gorka?
Well, I dedicated my first book, Defeating Jihad, to those 3 brave men who ran towards the sound of gunfire. And let's remember one thing that isn't a conspiracy theory. Ambassador Stevens, on dozens of occasions, asked for more protection from Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, and the Obama administration, which he was denied. Jason is absolutely right. It is utterly disgraceful that the former president should lie to our faces and dishonor the memory of those brave Americans, Sean.
To think of the courage to be told twice to stand down, Congressman, and go anyway. When you disobey an order to protect your fellow Americans, you've given up your career. It's over after that.
You know what happened when they actually got home? Those people saved dozens of Americans' lives. When they got home, you know what the State Department and Hillary Clinton's clerk did? They took away their security clearance so that they couldn't get a job. It was unbelievable.
Didn't they make them sign non-disclosures?
I mean, that's how they treated these guys.
Listen to this part.
Didn't they
sign non-disclosures? When they were there in Germany, they didn't send them home. They didn't offer them plane tickets. They were just told, you're released. They had to pay for their own tickets to get home.
Dr. Gorka.
You believe that, man? Wow. Can you imagine being dumped like that? Now, on the upside of that, they all worked for companies, so I'm sure their companies hooked them up. But still, usually the government does take care of transportation in situations like that.
Right. They were basically hired by the government to provide security for, at least where they were at, was that CIA compound a few blocks over. It doesn't surprise me. And President Obama, the best meme that I've seen in a few months was one that says, if things are so bad, why is Obama trying to take credit for everything?
I saw that. I saw another one about your situation, about the flood area. Water travels according to gravity. So you have these rivers coming downstream that are also following gravity, and it doesn't work. That's why it takes so long for it to go down. I don't know why I didn't say that in the segment, but anyway, so the Benghazi thing, the connection that I have with that is AFRICOM Commander General Carter Ham. He was going to react, and he disregarded orders. I've spoken with him personally, and he actually was relieved, and he was the officer that commissioned my son into the United States Army as a second lieutenant at John Carroll University. He was the highest ranking military member to ever come out of ROTC, which was a real honor for my son, being able to be commissioned by him at the school where he got his commission.
And you're saying that he was there at Benghazi?
No, he wasn't at Benghazi. He was AFRICOM commander.
AFRICOM, okay.
Which Libya is in North Africa. He was in where's their headquarters? It's in Florida. It's not in Africa, but there is an Africa command which Libya falls under, and he was the commander of during this event. And they got stand-down orders, and he said, "Kiss my," and started sending people, and he got relieved. Him and a Navy admiral also was relieved because he did the same thing. It's a situation that the truth's not out yet. The history books on this era, if they are accurate, are going to be damning to the Democrat Party. They are going to end the Obama administration. They just are. I mean, because there's people that are taking notes and have been. This show's one of them.
And there's people that were there that know what happened.
Right.
All
right.
I mean, I watched the Tonto Paranto. He was part of a movie. I think it came out a couple years ago, 13 Hours, which is basically he was one of the consultants in that movie. So that one's as close to being as real as I guess he could do with the NDA. But it shows you some of the situations, the lack of security, the people with the stand downs. You're not going anywhere, and they just basically bucked them and went out on their own to help out those folks.
Yeah, and for the people in the chat room, well, for the audience in general, I mean, this is not going to help. Well, you'll probably be able to see the replay, but right now my DVR is recording Trump at War. Steve Bannon has made a movie. He made a couple of them. He made one before this, but he made one now that's playing right now on One American News Network. My DVR is recording it, but I'm sure you can find replays on YouTube and maybe even on OANN also. I started watching. That is a good network. Thank you to James Chief for telling me about that. Or actually goaded me into going to watch it. I knew about it already. I had it bookmarked, but I just never checked it out. All right, now you're not going to be able to hear this because I had problems technically, Jack, but you listened to the clip previously. I want to give you another report from the RNC chairman, so let's listen to her. Where am I at in my notes, man? My goodness. Ronna McDaniel. Ronna, go.
This is it. Primary season comes to a close this week with just 3 states left to shape the midterm ballots. Voters are headed to the polls in New Hampshire today.
Okay, that clip's not working, and I know why, but I'm not going to mess with it because it's going to take too long. But you know what? Maybe I will try one quick time here to try to get this, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, then we will move on. But I don't think that it's really going to one shot at this. And no, we're not even going to mess with it. Nope. Yes, we are. Are we? Let's see. Let's try it again.
This is it. Primary season comes to a close this week with just 3 states left to shape the midterm ballots. Voters are headed to the polls in New Hampshire today for House and gubernatorial contests, followed by Rhode Island tomorrow. But the big race is in New York on Thursday, where incumbent Democrat Governor Andrew Cuomo will try to fend off celebrity challenger Cynthia Nixon. Ronna McDaniel is the chairwoman of the Republican National Committee, and she has some strong thoughts about how things are going to go. Great to see you. So the pitch left really has been happening since the 2016 presidential election. We saw it with Hillary Clinton. We saw that kind of push left to Bernie Sanders. What do you make of where it is now ahead of the midterms?
Well, certainly Governor Cuomo has had to go further left in this race for New York governor. He didn't anticipate such a strong challenger. And it caused him to make the very unfortunate remark that today especially seems unfortunate, when he said America's never was that great. I mean, to be in New York, to say that, especially on 9/11, to look at the heroes that we saw in New York City, to have the governor of that state make that remark is just shameful. And I think it's something that will impact him. He's had to make a pledge that he won't run for president if he's reelected. So it's definitely damaged Governor Cuomo, this primary. In New Hampshire, we're going to be looking at the 1st district. It's one of the districts where President Trump won, where there was a Democrat House member. Carol Shea Porter has resigned. It's an open seat. So that's going to be one of the pickup opportunities for Republicans for the House. But we're happy to get this primary season over and focused on the general election and make the contrast between what Republicans are putting forward, which is a robust economy, a vision for America that's making lives better, and the Democrats are putting forward, which is resist and obstruct and stop this economic boom at any cost.
I want to get to the economy with a new poll in just a moment, but just to step back to the race with Andrew Cuomo and Cynthia Nixon, what I kind of hear you saying is you expect him to go forward. Did she stumble or something? Cynthia Nixon, celebrity. Because you're talking about where Governor Cuomo stumbled. What happened with her? Because you kind of pushed her out of the way.
Yeah, I just don't think she had the financing. His numbers are very strong going into today, going into this week, this primary. I just don't see her coming out with a win. But she certainly has made traction. I mean, listen, the progressive movement, the socialist movement within the Democrat Party is growing. It should be concerning every American, Republican and Democrat, because go look at socialism, go look at Venezuela. This is frightening. It is not what we want for our democracy. But these candidates on the far left of the Democrat Party are getting traction, and she certainly gave Governor Cuomo a run for his money. We'll see what happens Thursday. I expect he'll win that race. All
right, let's talk about the economy. Can we pop up that Quinnipiac poll? 70% of the people in this poll on the economy say it's excellent or good. That's the kind of wind at your back that everybody wishes they could have. Begs the question is why you don't hear Democrats talking about the economy and any ideas that they may have. They're going after the current economy.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi has said we're going to raise taxes. She has said that. She called these bonuses, these $1,000 bonuses that people received in these bigger paychecks, crumbs. She's totally out of touch with middle America. They're talking about abolishing ICE. I mean, what they are putting forward is something that will hurt every American. And as we look at 4 million new jobs, 4.2% GDP. Our country is booming, and a vote for a Democrat in this election means shutting down the United States of America and shutting down this comeback. And that is what every voter needs to take stock of, because Democrats aren't running to go to Washington to keep this economy booming. They're coming to Washington to resist and obstruct. And that's not a winning message. Republicans want to continue fighting for the American people like we've been doing this past 2 years.
Yeah, the one challenge will be for both sides, as I'm hearing it, and that is to get voters to the polls, to increase that intensity. And as you close out the primary season this week, it will be fascinating to see how people re-engage in the topic. And 70% agreeing in one poll, a big poll, on the economy is huge. Ronna McDaniel with the RNC, Chairwoman, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, Harris.
All right, so I want to try to do that. Let me see if I have to change these settings back. Jack, can you hear?
I got you.
Okay, you're on there too. Good. I want to continue to keep bringing these reports from the RNC as we get close to the election. It's not that I find that they're a huge authority, but they do have their fingers on the pulse in all the states. And I asked her assistant on the Wayne Dupree show pointedly about Never Trumpers in the RNC, because clearly at one time it was the Never Trump RNC. There's no question about that. And she told me with some confidence that they were all gone. that their marching orders from the chair are to support the president. So we'll see. But I think that the audience needs to hear a perspective of what's going on with somebody that's all they do.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see, because I remember when Corey Stewart here in Virginia won the nomination to be the Republican candidate for Senate this year, that the person in charge of the GOP Senate campaign money basically said he's not in our plans. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, I know. The Republican Party is a dying brand, and I don't even think they realize it. I don't, man. I think this is something that it's not fixed yet. We might be on the mend. Everywhere I look, I see that the party is the president's party. But I also see Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell coming out with a tax reform bill, but we're not building a wall. And you can be sure that there is a campaign going on. I'm alerting you guys to this right now, by the Koch brothers and by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, not to be confused with your own community Chamber of Commerce, a quite different organization. And they are going to combine with their Democrat BFFs, and they are going to come out and they are going to start preaching the evil of the tariffs against their pimps in China. So be prepared to hear Republicans. Ben Sass will probably be one of the first, but there will be other ones that appear to be more on our side that are going to come out woofing against the tariffs that are starting to work. And what I mean when I say they're starting to work is you cannot turn an aircraft carrier around on a dime. We sold out all the middle class of this country, manufacturing-wise. Anybody in this area knows it, that's still left. Most of the hard workers left the area. But it takes a long time to get manufacturing set back up. But the alternative is you listen to these Republicans and you can buy cheaper stuff made by somebody else's family, or you hang in there and you understand that they've been raping us for decades. It's going to take a while, but pretty soon the manufacturers in this country are going to be buying goods from this country to make things in this country. It's going to take a little time, but there's no other way than that if we want a solid middle class, Jack.
Yeah, the first things you have to do is you got to get the plans in place. He's got many companies coming and committed to investing in the United States. Well, first they have to do the plans. They have to get approved. They have to get buildings built, factories built. And once those are all up and ready to go, then the jobs start pouring in for the workers. And like you said, this does not happen overnight. No. It takes time.
And
did you hear? A couple years.
Did you hear today the news that solidifies the potential for us to come roaring back? The United States is now the largest exporter of oil in the world. That is important. That is so important that in Washington State, and I'm talking energy, not just oil, gas, oil, but in Washington State, they are stopping the production of a coal port operation because so many countries in Asia want our coal that Washington has decided, well, we're communists, we're just going to not let you have the port. And 6 or 7 states are suing the new Confederacy in Washington State to say, no, those coastlines are national. They're not yours. You don't get to pick what comes in and out of your ports. That's not constitutional, and it's not. I mean, believe it or not, the Founding Fathers thought of that. And the common good is going to prevail in the court now that it's getting right. Anyway, I digress. I want you guys to look on SteelCityResistance.com. It's actually the post. It's newer than the show post, newer than the episode post. I've been putting some stuff up there. You guys need to go check that out. There's a lot of good historical films on there. It's not a news aggregate site. It's the home of Cold War radio, but it's also when I see something that's historically significant. In other words, 4 or 5 posts ago, I posted the video of Japan signing the surrender on the USS Missouri on September 2nd, 1945. my birthday, not the same year. But anyway, so things like that. But there's a post on there now that shows heavily armed individuals, I'm talking AKs, caught on camera entering the country illegally through an Arizona ranch. And this is time-lapse photo. There's so many. They're on horseback. They're in military uniform coming across our border. And I'm calling out the Trump administration. I don't give a damn about Congress. This is an act of war down there. If you know about this and you're not doing anything about it, then you're absolutely wrong. This is something that a president has authority to deal with immediately. And if you go and look at that film and you don't think we have an immediate problem, well, I don't know what to say. But go check it out. It's scary, actually. It really is. 412-567-1460 if you'd like to be on the program. Nobody calls the show, Jack. What's up?
Well, they're still getting used to the new schedule, you know.
That's what I figured, too.
I was out there sharing it, but they'll start rolling in once they get used to it.
I started making my presence a little bit more known on Gab. I talked to you a little bit on there. I added a bunch of, I had followers going back over a year that I didn't even know were there.
I saw the thing, Google banned Gab.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're over the target. There's a lot of people on there. I'm getting used to it now. Twitter will be gone soon for me, and Facebook. I think. I gotta make sure that we can sustain the program. But other than that, let's talk a little bit about something that got Jamie Glasov was banned from Facebook for this. Facebook or Twitter, one of them. He wrote an article on Front Page Magazine. David Horowitz, who also got banned from Twitter or Facebook, one of them. What's the difference, right? It's like the uni social media. 9 steps to successfully counter Jihad. The crucial strategies that will turn the dire conflict in America's favor, by Jamie Glasov, Front Page Magazine. And he goes on to say that in the light of the skyrocketing phenomena of Muslim migrants stabbing unbelievers in random stabbing sprees in Europe, as well as the calculated denial that leaders, authorities, and media are enforcing about it, Front Page has deemed it important to bring attention to the crucial steps America and the West must take to bring attention to the robustly confront the unceasing onslaught by Jihad and its leftist, that's Democrat, enablers. We are therefore reprinting below Front Page editor Jamie Glasov's July 12, 2016 Breitbart article, 9 Steps to Successfully Counter Jihad. So let's talk about them. Number 1, and we're not going to go through all the text, Jack, we're just going to converse, because that's what I want to do. Number 1, label the, I got to say, I love being on the Wayne Dupree show, but I'm feeling good in the Captain Kirk chair right now. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad you guys came back. I had nothing against that show. I love that show. I love Wayne. I love James. I loved all of them. It was time for me to move in my own direction, though, because I wanted to get back into this chair. Label the enemy and make a threat assessment. The Obama administration, and this was written in 2016, and you can take this to other administrations, as the Bush administration and every administration up until now continues to refuse to label our enemy and therefore continues to enable our defeat in the terror war. It's urgent that we name our enemy. That is Islamic Jihad. And Jack, the president did that yesterday.
Yeah, he's been pretty staunch on that on number 1 because even during the Bush years, they refused to call it what it was, to label it what it was. When you do that, you're basically obscuring the goal, right? You're not even have an identified member. I guess the boogeyman was just one guy, Bin Laden. But
and what did I say through all those years? Don't worry about Bin Laden. Don't worry about ISIS. Don't worry about these little groups, Al-Nusra and Aliyah Islam and Sharia in Iraq and everything else. This is a big global problem. It's the Ummah. So it's not one group. It's not ISIS. It's the whole ideology, the whole and it's not a religion either. You know, it's a political operation, and that's the way it is. Number 2, scrap countering violent extremism. And I'm not even going to read the text. I'm going to tell you the way I feel about this. These people are not extreme. You either believe this stuff or you don't. If you look and do a word search, and many people have, go to the research room, of the Quran, I mean, killing is what it's all about. That's what the whole book's about. I mean, it's not, they aren't violent. They just believe what they're reading, Jack.
Yeah, and I like how the author in the lower thing says using this countering violent extremism has been flipped on its head, basically, and is targeting what they call right-wing Islamophobes instead. You know, so that's what one of the things is, just get rid of that, because that's another faux narrative direction to push people into certain corners and make it like in the EU right now. It's, you know, everything's considered hate speech towards Islam or Muslims.
You know, those Europeans are gonna bite back one of these days.
They're starting to. It seems like
it's about time. It's taken way too long, and way too many women. Number 3, and this is a big one in the United States, a big one in the Republican Party, and a big one in government and media. Stop partnering with Muslim Brotherhood front groups. The government needs to stop cooperating with and listening to Muslim Brotherhood front groups such as CARE and ISNA immediately. I would add the Muslim Students Association, the Muslim Brotherhood document, the explanatory memorandum available in the research room, has made it clear that the Brotherhood's objective is to destroy our civilization from within by our own hands with the influence of these groups. Now, I would also call out the tactic, the very effective tactic of taqiyya, which states that Muslims can lie in the furtherance of Islam. And you'll see why I call it Islam, and you'll see why I call these Muslims at the end of this segment. Number 4, implement a concrete countering jihad strategy. So after discarding the countering violent extremist absurdity, we have to have a real policy. And it's got to specifically register that jihadists are the enemy, and that Islamic law, Sharia, is what specifically motivates them. And not just Sharia, the Quran, the Hadith, and Sunnah. Most importantly, as Seb Gorka urges in Defeating Jihad, the Winnable War, the government needs to lay down a vision, an actual threat doctrine analysis. I mean, in a thorough document, just like they laid out fighting communism during the Cold War. It's absolutely nuts to think that nothing like that exists now, Jack. As a matter of fact, they had people in the government that were rearranging documents and taking words out like Muslim extremists and jihad.
Yeah, and you've got the federal government and bureaucrats that are infiltrated with jihadists, Muslim Brotherhood representatives. They're the ones in there lobbying, or at least they were with the Obama administration, lobbying
and the Bush
for their
administration.
policy. You know, saying they're the ones that are saying no, we can't use the war on terror, the radical Islam, all of that stems from these groups infiltrating the highest levels of policy making in our government.
And again, like I said, it's not just Obama. Bush had, and we have today, Grover Norquist is everywhere. And his right-hand man, Suhail Khan, tell me, when I hear Suhail Khan come up against David Horowitz and debate David Horowitz and deny what David Horowitz has found about him, or Grover Norquist, and I'll say it, Glenn Beck, go up against Glenn Beck. He showed you the canceled checks that you wrote, Grover. You know, it's crazy. We need to launch our own counter-propaganda campaign. I mean, they're perfect at it. They do it 24/7. We need to do it ourselves. You know, we need to do something that must include our empowering of Muslims who are trying to form an anti-jihadist version of Islam. I mean, certainly they could have a reformation, but boy, I'll tell you what, it would have to be globally because they're everywhere.
Yeah, that one's pretty tough to see happening. And then if you do any of your efforts, you've seen it on all of the social media networks, anybody's efforts to put out countering jihad with facts and information, what are they banned, labeled as hate speech, and then wiped off of those platforms. So
but you have to start somewhere. It's the same way.
You got to keep trying.
And we got to teach our kids. I mean, I had to reset my stepson about Islam because the public schools in Pittsburgh are lying about it. You know, so I mean, this is something that it's going to take a long time. You're right. It is the hardest one. There's no question about that. But the number 6 affirms Sharia's assault on the U.S. Constitution as seditious. To me, this is probably the most important one because this is where we need to redefine the word religion when it comes to Islam. We cannot allow Islam, the political system, the cult of death, to become the same moral equivalent as any other religion in the world. Because if we do that, and I've said this before, if we do that, our Constitution will kill us. Let's welcome Carrie to the program. Been a long time. How's it going, Carrie?
Good evening, Mr. Bailey. Good evening, Mr. Mountain. So glad to have you back, Hutch. So glad to have you back.
Well, thank you.
You hit the nail right on the head when you said these people either believe or they don't believe.
Right. What else is there? I mean, when you read the text, you either believe that garbage or you don't.
Correct. It's all about semantics. I think Betsy said we need the moderate Muslims to start speaking up. Well, there is no such thing as a moderate anything. That's just like saying, well, if you're an alcoholic, I'm a moderate alcoholic. How do you do that? Or I'm a moderate conservative. There is no such thing as a moderate anything. You either believe what you say you believe, or you don't. You focus on that right there. This is a fight for your mind. It's a fight for your soul. It's all about semantics. And when they start throwing out all these semantics and start putting labels and defining everybody, you know it's a lie.
No, you're right. And from 2010, I have been saying, I said it a little differently. I say that words matter, which means the same exact thing.
They do.
But I've been saying that for a long time, and that is a weapon that has been taken from stupid conservatives. I shouldn't say it that way, for unassertive conservatives for too long. If we don't take that back, man, up's going to be down, down's going to be up, and it's already like that. I will say one more thing, and then I'll let you close it out, Carrie. I do believe that Islam could be reformed. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but I know we used to burn witches at the stake. I mean, there's a way for people to realize, all right, look, we've gone too far. You saw General al-Sisi in Egypt speak to the Muslim whatever organization he was speaking to, and he said, look, we can't kill 5 billion people out here. We have to be able to get along with people. And like I said, I don't know if it's going to happen. It probably won't in our lifetime anyway. But I think that's the only, either that or we got to kill them all. One or the other. And what are you going to do?
What you do, and again, it goes back to the statement that you said. You either believe it or you don't. What they need is they need to know the truth. There is no reforming someone who says it's okay to lie, and then who also says if once you profess to be one of us, then guess what? If you leave us, we're going to kill you. There is no reforming that.
I'm going to defer to that. I'm going to defer to that and say, you know what? You're probably right. You're probably right, Carrie, and it's sad.
Well,
it's a lot of people.
I've been saying it for years now. Truth is the undefeated undisputed champion of all times. All we have to do, we don't have to go out in the street and fight people. We don't have to mock and berate and belittle and ridicule people and make fun of them. That's what they do.
That's my job.
All you got to do is tell the truth, and then the truth exposes all of the liars, all of the fakes, and all of the frauds. That's all you got to do. You just keep telling the truth, and you know you're telling the truth because all of a sudden you're going to start getting attacked.
Jack?
Is what you're going to be. Is what's going to happen. I think because I called in, I disconnected him, so you're going to have to work on that, Mr. Bailey. But thank you for your time, sir. I'll let you get back to your show. And again, so great to have you back on. So glad you decided to start doing your own show again, sir. Thank you for your time, sir.
Well, thanks, Kerry. I appreciate it. Jack, you still on there?
Thanks. Yeah, I was just sitting there learning and listening. It was great to hear from Kerry. Ain't heard from him in a long time, so it's thanks for calling in, Kerry.
Can you stay a couple extra minutes?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's finish this up. Number 7. And feel free to call, ladies and gentlemen, 412-567-1460. Thanks, Kerry. Number 7, put pressure on mosques, Islamic groups, and schools. Boom. I mean, these people come in here and they say they're going to, they buy up a church. We're so far away from the church that there's empty churches all over the damn country, Jack. I mean, they're everywhere, and you see them with for sale signs on them. And the ones that the Muslims buy, the first thing they do is chop the cross off the top and tear out the altar and that whole area. It's horrible, man. We have to do this. I would say that there ought to be some kind of statute that, look, man, all right, you can build this mosque. Where are you from? Yemen? All right, but you got to build a Catholic church over there or a cathedral in Yemen. You know, you can't just build one here and we can't build one. No. Because that's the way it is.
Yeah, it's one of the guys that President Clinton brought over, Fethullah Gulen, the one that Turkey's leader has been wanting for us to get. Clinton brought him over, and I did some reading on him, and he's got
schools,
a massive amount of schools across the United States teaching this, and that's been going on. So he came in here in the 90s, I believe.
I know. I did a whole show on him. It's I know. It's something that, and the thing about those schools, if I recall correctly, is there was like rifle ranges on them, in some of them. But that whole idea of camps is true. There's jihadist training camps all over the country.
I remember one map with a lot of those labeled, and I remember heading up into the election where the drug cartels had partnered with ISIS and was providing land in Mexico for jihadi training camps just south of the border. I wonder if that's tied into what you saw on that piece with arms.
No, they were Mexicans. They were definitely Mexicans. But there's I also did a show on Iranian sites in Central America that were capable of launching missiles. And this is no joke, man. This is real stuff. The biggest demographic of people that are turning to Islam is Latin Americans, is Hispanics. It's the biggest one, the biggest group, which is unbelievable because, I mean, I've been into Central America. I've been in the jungles, and in the middle of the jungle, there's churches everywhere. You wouldn't believe it. They're the most beautiful thing in the whole village, like the centerpiece. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, with freshly painted Virgin Marys, and in the middle of the jungle, there's no electricity. It's unbelievable. Number 8, bring counter-jihadists into the government. Please do. Why did we get rid of Gorka? I don't know. But this is something like, you have Muslim Brotherhood sympathizers that I've been talking about for 10 years, like Mohammed Alibiari, who was on the U.S. Homeland Security Advisory Council. He resigned in 2014 under mysterious circumstances. But this was the guy that prompted Michelle Bachmann to ask the the inspectors general of all U.S. federal agencies to do an investigation into their agency to see if there was any Muslim Brotherhood infiltration. Guess who jumped out in her face? John McCain and Marco Rubio.
Surprise, surprise.
People that support Marco Rubio, they kill me, man. I don't understand it. I don't. Talk about a loser. That guy, man, Florida, come on. He's turning in to the new McCain. Did you hear him about Venezuela? He thinks we should intervene militarily.
No, I don't think that's that. I don't think that's a smart move.
No.
I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah,
it
sounds like McCain wanting to get involved there. That's up to the Venezuelan people to rise up against what their leadership has done to their country. I mean, and it's a relatively short period of time that it has gone from what it once was to what it is today. And at some point, those folks need to stand up for themselves.
I'll tell you, and I went to high school for a couple years in a military academy, and there was a lot of Venezuelans there, and they're good soldiers too, boy. No question. What about Huma Abedin? She's at the right hand of Hillary Clinton. We need to bring people in that understand this and can fight against it for what it is. And we have to shut down the political correctness, the cultural Marxist political correct weapon that has been so damn effective on killing our culture, and call this what it is. And that's why I think that the very first task on that list is to get the verbiage right. I mean, Norway posted in the Spreaker chat room, and Norway is Cold War Radio's premier expert on Islam. I think he said 5% of the Quran is dedicated to religion. 5 or 10%. The rest, it's all politics. It's all conquest. It's all the He-Man Woman Haters Club.
Yeah, and Huma Abedin, that person mentioned, that goes way back because he was brought into the Clinton White House as an aide to Hillary Clinton
when she was like 19.
By former CIA Director John Brennan.
Yeah.
So you look at that. That's just how long this infiltration of our government has been going on.
John Brennan, that's another excellent example. How does a guy like that, how does a guy who voted communist, I mean, you were in the military, Jack. I was a chief warrant officer 4 on the promotable list. I made the CW5 list. And if I would have ever voted communist, they'd have known. You know, it's part of the background checks. You know, how did he get all the way to where he was? And I'll tell you, I know how. It's because of the deep state. Because he came in during CIA Director Casey's time, and Casey hated communists. So some other deep state operative let him in. And it's just something to be worried about. It is. That he made it. All right, number 9, finally. And the one that will go against what Kerry said. Ridicule the enemy. These pedophile, beard-wearing idiots, inbred people have got to be stopped. And there is no shortage of comedy that these camel piss drinking people can be placed under. Because they do some things that normal people don't do, Jack.
Yeah, and you see how sensitive they become just from political cartoons. How they reacted there. They also had a thing in Texas a couple of years ago where the actual FBI was involved with somebody attacking. I think it was a Pam Geller art, anti-Islam art show. But every time you can see how sensitive they are. So I think ridiculing the enemy is a strong tactic to use because it really does get them, riled up, stirred up.
Yeah. And if you look back during World War II, and not even World War II, I remember. Now I joined the Army in 1980, and you and I were both in maintenance. equipment maintenance. We're not the maintenance man. We worked on tanks and whatever. And you remember PS Magazine?
Right.
Well, that was a little comic book because during the draft, sometimes the guys weren't as sharp as maybe they, whatever. It's a little comic book, right? I think it was like a 6th grade reading level or something. And it came out every month to, if there was a certain fix on a tank, it would tell you, or if there was a rifle that needed to be, modified, it and showed stock numbers and whatever. Well, I was in a motor pool that had PS magazines going back to when they were damn near black and white. And I'm going to tell you, we used to get on the Vietnamese now. Back in the day, the Army used to have them with the big buck teeth and everything. I mean, in World War II, it was the same way. They called the Nazis the Hun. And they called the Japanese the Nips. This was common language. And it's about being men. But we turned around and turned all the men into girls. And I'm just saying that for effect, But, I mean, we've weakened our own sword. We've dulled our sword.
You've basically, they watered it down. This is what, during times of conflict, then you're basically trying to make your enemy look smaller, less aggressive, and you want to pump up your side to be the victor, the victorious, you can't be beat. And so that goes to to that mentality. But now everything, what is it? It's too politically, it's even spread into the military, active duty and how they have to go about their daily business.
It's
they
horrible.
Spend so much time on this political correctness training that they miss out on some of their vital training or maintenance on the vehicles or aircraft or all this stuff. You see all these things being neglected. Hopefully, with the new money that the president has gotten the military, they can turn this around and get their rolling stock, their weapons systems, their airplanes, and the fleets up to snuff.
I'll tell you, I've been waiting a long time to say this. I bit my lip, and I told Tony Schaefer about this, and he knew right what I was talking about. Back when I was still serving, there was a lot of things I couldn't say, and I wanted to. And I bit my lip and had blood running down my chin because of the Hatch Act. And I didn't do it. But I got to tell you now, there's a deep state in the Army, too. A deep, deep state. Many of the first of all, we have entirely too many generals in the United States Army. There's as many generals in the United States Army now or more than we had, and I mean flag officers, over all the services, than there was during World War II, and we're not even fighting a war. I mean, unless you're in Afghanistan, unless you're one of those troops, but there's not hundreds of thousands of people deployed under arms.
And there's some pretty good lobbying positions for these generals when they decide, if they're in that little cabal within D.C., they get lucrative offers as soon as they
100%.
Take off the uniform.
I think one of the best things that we could do, and it's not going to happen because it's Mattis is a D.C. guy now, but if we could get somebody, if we could separate the Pentagon from D.C., like move it to Tennessee or something, just get it, do something with the Pentagon, donate that to something, turn it into a prison. We're going to need it. And right in D.C., that'll be good. We can put all these politicians right in there. But you got to get away. When you have senators and generals on a first-name basis, that's where you get this stuff. And it's got to quit. It's not helpful whatsoever.
Got to separate it. Just sort of like when you were mentioning the Department of Interior, why not move it into the middle of the country?
In Nebraska, right.
Right, and just, have those agencies spread out across the United States instead of concentrated in Washington, D.C. That might make it a little bit more difficult for these, cozy cabals that exist right now.
There was a reason where was I going with that? I don't know. Anyway, so, you move that out of there. You got to get it to where the soldiers, see, it came back to me. Soldiers, when I left the United States Army, spent entirely way more time on sex than they did with their weapon. And that's a problem. That's a problem. When you're worried more about social justice issues, every for the American heterosexual white male in the United States military, which is still the majority, has to walk into his base every month and see a month dedicated to somebody except him. There's never a month for him, but we're going to celebrate whatever this month and whatever next month, and ridiculous. Anyway, Fox News is not what it used to be, Jack. I mean, I don't know if you've been watching. The last couple nights I've been watching a special report with Bret Baier, and I used to watch that for a long time, for many, many years, for the esteemed panels that they used to have on. And then I started noticing that the panels started being populated with never Trumpers. And now there's people on there that you never even heard of before. I mean, Bret Baier gets in there, and I'm thinking, who the hell is that? You know,
well, even Bret Baier, he's like under the wing of Brit Hume, who I'm not a fan of. But no, the only person on Fox that I watch, and that's every couple of days or so on a rerun, is Tucker Carlson, if he has a good guest on, because I think he's pretty straightforward.
He's better than any of the other ones have ever been.
He's not overly, rah MAGA Trump. There's things that he doesn't agree with the president on, but there's a lot of things that he does agree with him. But he's very good at just basically breaking down somebody from the opposing side's argument, when they're talking foolish or bringing talking points. He calls them out.
No, he's great. I'm talking about the news part, but for the first time in 15 weeks, Fox News did not reign supreme in the primetime cable ratings. According to Nielsen, Fox News finished second in primetime for the week September 3rd to 9th. The week prior, they had their 14th consecutive week as the number one cable network in primetime. But ESPN managed to snag the top primetime spot thanks to its heavy coverage of the U.S. Open. ESPN brought in 2.5 million viewers with wall-to-wall coverage of the tennis championship, with Fox having 2.3 million. And then it goes on to tell the rest of the ratings story. But I would say that's not as much a boon for ESPN as a loss for Fox News viewers that have figured this out.
Yeah, they took a decided turn during the election, actually. If you remember back during the campaigns when they were getting into the debates, and I think there was one key one where Megyn Kelly was one of the moderators, got into it.
That was horrible. I have audio. I have audio of it. It was so bad. I'm not going to play it, but I mean, I was like, wow, I can't believe she did that.
And there was also the same time where I believe the owner, the older statesman, turned over control of Fox News Channel to his children, Murdoch's kids. So from that day forward, you've seen the change. O'Reilly's gone.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised Hannity's still there. I really am. I'm very surprised. They tried to get him out a
couple times, didn't they?
Yeah, I'm very surprised he's still there.
Eric Bolling's gone.
I saw him tonight on an interview with Alex Jones, and it wasn't on YouTube. And I don't know if it was my computer or if they're messing with him that bad that I couldn't watch the interview. It kept on locking up. I mean, it was HD beautiful when it was working, but every 5 or 10 seconds it would start garbling and pausing, and I finally rebooted my computer, and when I got back on, I didn't go back and watch it. But it was heated. It was very heated between Eric Bolling and Alex Jones, which I can't believe they're doing that to him, but we'll deal with that on another show. What do you think about, first you had Obama coming out reminding us all why we elected Donald Trump president on the campaign trail, and now you have George W. Bush coming on the campaign trail. I can't imagine a Republican that has a pulse, that would want George W. Bush on the campaign trail with him or her.
I think it's quite telling. Though, remember when Bush left office, when Obama took office, President Bush said, it's not fair for me to go in and challenge or give my thoughts or opinions against the sitting president, right? He basically just stepped aside and went to do his nice paintings and all that stuff. Was out
until Donald Trump came along.
Until Trump came on. And now they're all the former presidents and former people in Congress. And, even Arizona, they've just put in McCain's replacement. He's an old school GOP elite.
Kyle, yeah. He's a good senator, though. He'll be all right.
He's only going to serve until the end of this year.
Right.
They're going to have to appoint another one next year. And that's the one that I guess is going to run for re-election at the end of that year.
We'll see what happens. John, he's an old school guy, and he is an establishment guy. But if McCain would have just been an establishment guy, we wouldn't have Obamacare right now. He went past that. He went over that line.
Well, there's plenty of things that Songbird did that were against this country.
And now Kerry. Look at Kerry. I don't understand how people can't connect these dots. I sent a tweet out tonight about John Kerry interfering with Iranian political leaders, and that's being a traitor, man. He's not going over there asking about the kids because his daughter is married to an Iranian. He's not doing that. He's going over there giving them advice on how to wait until the Democrats in their Trump derangement syndrome fantasy minds are going to unseat the president in 2020.
Yeah, I read about that. It doesn't surprise me it's from him. But to me, that's isn't that sedition or treasonous activity? He's going.
There's so much of that. It's everywhere, and you've heard me say it in the past. Nobody's hanging yet. Sooner or later, I honestly believe that we are on the precipice of a time where I think what they're doing is they're weighing how much the system can take, because conservative, Republican, Democrat, liberal, they want to preserve the institution above everything else. And I don't know if it can handle it. We'll see.
Well, it's gone so big, and you can see that it's not just the left that enjoys the perks and stuff that they've passed for themselves. It's the GOP as well, the ones that are in there, the lifers that are in there. So
good characteristic.
It could be the president is just waiting to see how we, the people, respond this November. It's basically on our shoulders, right? And it's up to the voters to make the change.
You're right. Ladies and gentlemen, and this is going to be the theme for a couple months now. Going forward, you got to get your people out. Everybody that you were excited with that wasn't involved in politics before, when the Donald came out, you got to reconnect with them. Tomorrow I'm going to reconnect with people I used to work with. I'm going to make sure, hey, man, are these guys on board? Are people getting fired up? Are they going to go vote in the midterms? Now in Pennsylvania, in my region, unless you're going against Connor Lamb, there's not really a whole lot of other seats that you could take, except for the Senate and the governor. Lou Barletta and Scott Wolf. Scott Wolf's a flawed candidate. Lou Barletta is not. If Lou Barletta doesn't beat Bob Casey, we got problems. Lou Barletta, I got to get him on this show. Lou Barletta is a warrior. And he's a warrior because of illegal immigration. This is a guy that you got to get in.
Yeah, he was a straight shooter. I know you played that interview clip with him, and it was just awesome. He was quick with the answer, and he knew answers to the questions immediately. It was a great interview. Hopefully you got that on the page too.
I'm going to put that on there. I don't remember. Yeah, it's on the Facebook page. It should be. I'll check though. That is an important one. Very good. Now finally, tonight, and 412-567-1460. If you'd like to jump in at the tail end of the show, we got a little bit of time. We could talk to you. But I want to talk about Congressman Representative Scalise, who was there was an attempted murder against him. A Democrat attempted to murder him because he was a Republican, and there was no outrage or anything. We just let that go. But calls out Democrats for inciting violence against the GOP. I mean, we had a GOP headquarters burned, torched. We had a representative, or a candidate rather, out in California stabbed. And we have actors asking, where's John Wilkes Booth when you need him? I mean, at some point, my immediate guttural, visceral response was a retweet with the comment, one of these days, an American conservative man is going to bite back. I mean, this can't continue.
Yeah, they also had the security scare at the Trump International Hotel in D.C. from somebody tweeted or put on social media a threat that he's going to come up, and his goal was to collect as many bloody MAGA hats he could have. I didn't hear any follow-up on that one. But Scalise is right. I mean, it's been going on. Who is it? Maxine Waters, one of the ones.
And that's who he was
for the
calling
last
out,
couple of
pretty much.
months.
Yeah,
basically, we've got to go out there and do this, do that. And I looked at this, and you look at the leftists out there, the ones that are agitating. You've got Antifa, the women, but these aren't peaceful. This ain't like the '60s hippies, peace and love. This is more like the '70s weather underground activist types, the ones that blew up buildings and it felt good about. Obama's buddy.
Just to set the record,
Bill Ayers.
just to set the record straight, those were the same people. I mean, you had the '60s people that you're talking about, but all that happened in the '60s. And, I mean, there was a little bleed over in the '70s, but Bill Ayers was one of the head guys at the 1968 convention in Chicago, which was titled The Days of Rage. And then Democrats today tried to do that again, and it didn't work a couple times. But, yeah, you're right, man. I mean, and these guys, Bill Ayers is like a professor emeritus at Chicago University. He's getting big bucks. I mean, these guys get a lot of money for that.
And he's teaching kids.
Yeah, and teaching them in the ways of the commies. And it's just something that, now this violence, again, one of these days, I think something that is, that really gets me is it's the separation of the knowledge base of urban kids when it comes to the rest of the world. Because I used to be one. I mean, I was very privileged up until third grade. And in third grade, I ended up in public school, and I was shocked. I had no idea that the rest of the country was like this. I'm talking about it was my first exposure to black kids and Korean kids that weren't millionaires. And it was, I didn't have any problem adjusting, but it was two different worlds. And you've got these activists, these Cheeto-stained people, metrosexuals, a lot of them, that don't have a clue that if you piss off enough people that live in these suburban and rural communities, and I'm talking, let's not cut to the chase here. I'm talking white guys. The majority, not all, but the majority. You piss these guys off, you got problems. I'm just saying, I know, Jack, you're in Virginia. I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but, in my raising up, I was a Marine Corps brat. And so, I guess I was lucky to be in that situation because I grew up on different bases, different areas of the country, overseas, and always went to school for the most part with soldiers, Marine Corps, military members, kids as well, from all different races, backgrounds, countries, the whole thing. That's something that I think more kids would benefit from. When you're young like that, you grow up not having any perceived hatred towards another group of people.
And I didn't mean that part. I'm talking about more along the lines, probably of your upbringing, of guns everywhere, of massive love of country, of big ideas. And people don't realize they make fun of people in the country and people mainly in rural and suburban America. And if you know these people like I do, they have massive amounts of machinery and just a master of hands-on blue-collar things. That's unparalleled.
Self-sufficient.
Exactly. Self-sufficient and able to kick ass if they have to.
Yep.
In a huge way, in a way that people in the city don't realize. They don't realize that there's vehicles and pieces of equipment that, well, man, if anything happens, I'm just going to take this and we're going to go down there and do that. You know what I mean? TNT, stuff that, not fertilizer, but I'm talking about the real stuff. And it's just, don't wake that sleeping giant up. Because if you ever do, I don't know what, have you seen Sons of Anarchy?
I didn't watch that show, but, hopefully, all these antics that the left are pulling all over the media, all across certain streets.
Only
that GOP office was just opened up for a few hours, and then it was burned.
You notice it only happens in Democrat misery areas. It only happens in the middle areas that are controlled by Democrats. Because it happened here. A friend of mine was running for mayor of the city of Pittsburgh and put up a GOP thing in a neighborhood on the East End, and they looted it. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen in areas that aren't controlled by these communists. And it's just something that, to close the show, it's something that we have to realize the shift of the Democrat Party. It's not the Democrat Party that it was even 5 years ago. They are out there, the socialist communists. Whenever you hear the word socialist, just go right to communist, because there's no difference. There's no difference. You look
no
Look
doubt.
at
look
Venezuela.
At the candidates that they're promoting, and the candidates that are winning on their side, they are full-blown, far left socialists / communists that are out there, and they're pushing them up as the mainstream.
Sure. Yeah. They said it. The Perez, the DNC chairman, said it. And there's going to be a war there. It's going to be fun as hell to watch. But just look at Venezuela, because it started out socialist, but look at what's happening now. It doesn't take but a speed bump to go from socialist to communist.
And that's another reason why I don't think the president of the United States should get involved in Venezuela.
No, I don't either.
A more stronger example of what these leftists are trying to get in our country than to look at that country right now.
The problem is illegal immigration. If we don't put a handle on it, we're going to end up seeing Venezuelans everywhere. And they're going to bring their politics with them. Which, okay, that guy was bad, but we're still socialist, so we'll vote for Schakowsky. So
no, not her. She's still in there. Bob Kramer's wife, right?
Yeah, exactly. Somebody who got away with murder, man. That guy right there and her.
From this election and the post-election is how many, the nepotism involved in D.C. and how all the wives maintain their maiden names. That way they don't,
Yep.
It's like, unless you look close, you don't know these folks are intermarried with each other. They're that close into high-level positions. So
this Kramer,
that's across,
ladies and gentlemen,
that's across media, government,
it is.
The Fed,
the lobbyists,
Congress, everything.
And what he's referring to is that Bob Kramer, was the principal boss that Project Veritas busted during the run-up to the election with the violence, especially at the Chicago Trump rally that had to be canceled. Or no, was it canceled? Well, one was canceled.
Yeah, I think it was the Chicago one that he shut down for safety because they went out there and started stuff in the streets prior to it.
Yeah, and the police got a stand-down order and everything else. Jack, great show. How can people get in touch with you or final comments, my friend?
I'm always on. Well, I'm on Gav.ai, Jack at Mountain. I'm always hanging around Spreaker. One last thought. I just popped up right before the show. I saw on Breitbart they have got a leaked video of Google's leadership's dismayed reaction to the Trump election. What it is a internal videotape of what they have as, thank God it's Friday, meetings for the corporation. It's about an hour or something long, but it's about these Google executives coming up, and basically they look like they're in mourning because Trump won, and they're trying to figure out what to do.
All right, Jack, thank you. And I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. on Facebook, MeWe, Gab, Convo, and Berg's Eye View on Twitter. I want to thank everybody for listening live, and thank you to those of you listening to the various podcasts out there. Tune in Friday night, 8:30 for the panel. Everybody's going to be here, except maybe not Stacy. Stacy's son plays football, but she said that she'll be on every other one after that. So Friday night is the panel, and give some shout-outs to Norway, because, man, it's going to be late for him. I didn't even think about that when I was making these moves, but what are you going to do, man? It's part of the game. Thanks for letting us into your life for 1 hour and a half. Ladies and gentlemen, see you Friday. God bless.